I woke up in a cold, sterile hospital room with a metal rod screwed into each leg and a searing pain that radiated up my spine with every breath. Tubes were taped to my arms, my mouth was dry, and my body felt like it had been through a meat grinder. But what hurt the most was not the crash itself. It was the voicemail that played when I finally reached for my phone. My mother's voice chirped through the speaker like everything was fine. "Hi, sweetie. We are just about to board. Rome, here we come." Then my father's voice cut in with a laugh. "Tell her not to bother calling us. Roaming charges are ridiculous." And that was it. No question about my injuries. No concern about whether I had survived the wreck they had already been informed about. Just a casual message that they were jetting off to Italy with my younger brother Ethan on the vacation I had unknowingly paid for. They knew I had been hit by a drunk driver and nearly died. They knew I was lying in a hospital bed with broken bones, and they went anyway. I replayed that voicemail so many times, I could recite every word. And each time something inside me cracked a little more. These were the people I had been supporting for years, paying their mortgage, their car loans, even Ethan's monthly allowance, because he could not find the right job. I had been working 60-hour weeks to keep their lives afloat, and in the moment I needed them. Most they left me to recover alone, while they clinked wine glasses on cobblestone streets. I stared at the ceiling, paralyzed in more ways than one, as rage burned in my chest. That was the moment I realized the truth. I was not a daughter to them. I was a paycheck, an ATM with a heartbeat. And now, lying here with screws in my legs and a catheter strapped to my side, they had made one fatal mistake. They had shown me exactly who they were. And when I recovered, I would make sure they never had access to me or my money again. I lay there for hours after hearing that voicemail, not just processing the pain, but unpacking the years that brought me to that hospital bed, not just physically broken, but emotionally bankrupt. My parents had always favored Ethan. He was the charming one, the loud one, the golden boy with the big smile and zero accountability. I was the one who fixed things quietly, efficiently, without praise. When Ethan got fired from his fourth job in 2 years, guess who covered his rent? When my dad's truck got repossessed, guess who paid off the loan and pretended it never happened? I was 23 when I first started covering their bills. What began as a temporary safety net became a full-blown financial web I was strangled in. My parents did not ask, they expected. My brother did not thank me. He bragged about how lucky the family was to have me. Lucky I had not taken a vacation in 5 years. I was living in a one-bedroom apartment with second-hand furniture while they shopped for designer coats and posted steak dinners on Instagram under the caption "Family Blessings." And I told myself it was love, that I was doing what a good daughter does, that maybe if I gave enough one day they would see me not just as a wallet, but as their own flesh and blood. But that dream died the moment I heard them laughing on that voicemail skipping through Italian airports while my pelvis was being reconstructed by a trauma surgeon. I thought about all the Sunday dinners where I sat quietly while Ethan interrupted me, talked over me, even made fun of me for being too serious. I remembered my mother shushing me when I tried to speak up about feeling used. "He is just under pressure," she said. "You know how boys are." No, I knew exactly how they were entitled, coddled, and rewarded for failure, while I was punished for success. My therapist later called it financial abuse. At first I bristled. Abuse felt like such a heavy word. But when I laid out the pattern of manipulation, control, and guilt, it all made sense. They had not just taken my money. They had taken my voice, my time, my joy. And now they had taken my presence and replaced it with a vacation I unintentionally funded. That was the moment the guilt began to dissolve, replaced by clarity. I was not selfish for wanting boundaries. I was not cruel for wanting respect. I was not obligated to keep feeding people who would rather watch me starve than give up a glass of wine in Rome. I began to plan, not just an exit, but a reckoning. I did not want revenge in the traditional sense. I wanted peace, and peace in my case meant taking back every piece of myself they had claimed over the years. I would not ask them to care. I would make sure they could never hurt me again. If you have ever felt used by the people closest to you, comment below and subscribe for more powerful true betrayal stories. After days of lying in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, and piecing together what I had ignored for far too long, I finally opened Ethan's Instagram. I do not know what I expected. Maybe guilt, maybe a simple get well soon post, but what I found made my blood turn to ice. There he was, poolside at a luxury villa in Tuscany, holding a glass of wine, and grinning like a man who had never been told no in his life. The caption, family first. Always. And the comments, my parents chiming in with red hearts and champagne emojis. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. They were not on some spontaneous trip to escape grief or stress, they had planned this. While I lay in a hospital bed, steel pins holding my legs together, they were sipping Pinot Grigio and posing in front of Roman fountains like the kind-hearted family they pretended to be. I dug deeper. Airline confirmations in my email inbox forwarded weeks ago from my mother with the subject line, "Just in case you need to check us in." The hotel booking was processed on my card 3 weeks prior to the accident. That meant they already intended to leave the country before I nearly died. The crash just gave them an easier excuse to disappear. And what was worse, I paid for it all. Every gelato, every train ticket, every museum pass. My bank statements read like a vacation brochure. My face flushed with a level of shame I had never felt before. I was not just being used, I had been played. They had smiled to my face, thanked me vaguely for my help, and then quietly drained me like a leech with a plane ticket. The betrayal stung more, because I realized it was never new. It was just finally undeniable. They had always seen me as Plan B, the backup fund, the fixer. Even the family dog liked Ethan more. My victories had been shrugged off, my pain, ignored, my loyalty, abused. I remembered once paying for Ethan's DUI lawyer, while my parents told neighbors he was studying abroad. I remembered fixing the furnace when it died in winter, then being told I was too sensitive for wanting acknowledgement. This trip, this betrayal, was just the final straw in a haystack of quiet cruelty. And it had all been coordinated. All three of them knew. They had laughed, posed for photos, raised glasses, and pressed post while I lay broken in a hospital with no visitors and fading hope. My silence had made me complicit for years, but this time I would not be quiet. This time I would make sure they heard me without raising my voice. No confrontations, no arguments, just facts, just consequences. I began making a list not of things I had lost, but of things I would now take back, starting with every cent they had stolen. After uncovering the extent of their betrayal, something in me shifted. The hospital room no longer felt like a prison. It became a fortress, a sacred pause in the chaos, where I could finally hear myself think. The steady hum of machines, the soft footsteps of nurses, even the sterile smell of disinfectant, it all became background music to the slow rebuilding of my spine, not just physically, but emotionally. They thought they had left me stranded, but in truth, they gave me space to see clearly for the first time. And in that clarity, I stopped feeling helpless. I began observing people, not the ones who had hurt me, but those who showed up without any obligation. My night nurse, Riley, was the first. She adjusted my pillows, gently brought me peppermint oil for the nausea, and once when I woke up crying in the middle of the night, just sat beside me and held my hand without asking why. Then there was Samantha, my temporary roommate recovering from a back injury, who offered up a granola bar from her drawer on the second day and said, "Looks like we are both held together with screws." Huh? She joked about being bionic, laughed at hospital food, and made the room warmer just by being in it. None of them owed me anything. Yet their small human acts of kindness filled holes my family had ignored for years. I realized I had spent most of my life mistaking proximity for love. Sharing blood had not protected me from being emotionally starved. But now, surrounded by strangers, I was finally being seen fully without conditions. Every night I reflected. Riley brought me a journal, and at her encouragement, I began writing not just about the accident, but about every time I had swallowed disappointment to keep the peace. I wrote about the time my mother told me I was ungrateful for asking if I could skip sending money 1 month. I wrote about how Ethan laughed when I said I wanted to move to Seattle, but could never afford to leave the family behind. And as the words spilled out, so did the poison. Something strange happened next. I began to feel stronger, not just because the swelling in my legs had gone down, or because I could finally sit upright without passing out. I felt stronger because for once I was choosing myself. I no longer felt shame in the silence from my family. I felt relief. I did not want their apologies. I wanted space. And I had it now. The hospital, for all its cold surfaces and fluorescent lights, became my incubator. Here, I would not be guilted or gaslit. Here, I would rebuild one breath, one journal page, one boundary at a time. I was not just healing bones. I was learning to walk again in every sense. As the swelling in my legs subsided and I regained my ability to sit up without fainting, my resolve sharpened. Each breath came with a little less pain and a little more fire. Riley noticed it first. She teased, "You've got that dangerous look in your eyes. What are you planning?" I smiled but said nothing. Because I was planning. Not a confrontation, not a scene. I had spent too long screaming into the void of people who refused to hear me. This time, my revenge would be silent, precise, and permanent. With Riley's help, I got in touch with a financial advisor, a woman named Camille, who did not flinch when I explained the years of unchecked access my family had to my bank accounts. She nodded slowly, and then she said, "You did not fail. You were trained to feel responsible for their comfort. That ends today." That single sentence felt like a release, like a rope being cut. Camille moved quickly. She helped me freeze all my credit cards, reroute my direct deposits into a new account, and start untangling the web of automatic payments and shared authorizations. I gave her full access to review all financial transactions, and within 24 hours, she uncovered just how deep the betrayal ran. My family had not only used my accounts, they had opened store cards in my name, upgraded airline seats, and even subscribed to premium cable while I was stuck streaming on a student plan. My name was the foundation of their fake stability. With Camille handling the finances, I contacted a lawyer named Armin Young Sharp and zero tolerance for manipulation. We drafted a cease and desist letter outlining financial boundaries and formally notifying them that any further use of my accounts would be considered fraud. Then I called the airline and canceled their return flights. Not rescheduled. Canceled. I did not even want them flying home on my dime. The refund fittingly went straight into my new private account. A few days later, I arranged a courier to visit my childhood home. I was legally entitled to collect personal belongings items that my parents claimed were gifts to the family, but were actually heirlooms from my grandmother and things I had purchased. Jewelry, my computer old journals, photo albums, all boxed up and delivered to my hospital room. I cried when I opened the first one, not out of grief, but because I was taking back parts of myself they thought I would never miss. The best part I told no one. No dramatic call, no angry text, just action. Clean, quiet, surgical. The kind of revenge that does not make noise, but leaves permanent silence in its place. I pictured them in Italy, wondering why their cards were being declined, wondering how their golden goose suddenly flew away without a sound. This was not just about money, it was about dignity. They could keep their fake smiles and hollow toasts. I was taking back everything that mattered: my peace, my voice, and my power. It did not take long. Barely 48 hours after I pulled the plug, the first message landed in my inbox. "Hey Hazel, weird stuff happening with the cards. Can you check?" That was from Ethan, of course. Casual. As if this was just another tech glitch I should fix for them like always. I deleted it without reading the rest. That same afternoon, my mother called the hospital directly. A nurse handed me the phone, and against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was panicked, sharp-edged, and nowhere near apologetic. "We are stuck in Florence. None of the cards are working. Your father is furious. What is going on?" I let the silence stretch until she barked Hazel. Then I replied steady and cold. "Figure it out." And I hung up. The next message came from my father. Long, blaming. He used every guilt-soaked phrase in the book. "After all we have done for you, this is how you repay us. We were on vacation to clear our heads after your accident. as if sipping $300 bottles of wine in another country was somehow a noble response to my near-death experience. I did not reply. I sent the cease and desist letter through Armin, copied their emails, and forwarded everything to my legal team. For the first time in my life, I was not defending myself. I was not justifying my decisions or begging to be understood. I had said everything I needed to by cutting off access. And now, I was just watching them unravel. They sent more emails, more calls. Ethan even tried to FaceTime me. I ignored everyone. They were not reaching out to check on me. They were reaching out because their lifeline, the one they never thought would fight back, had finally been severed. They were stuck in a foreign country without access to my money, unable to upgrade hotels or extend their stay without a prepaid ride back to the airport. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Ethan had to use his own credit card, likely for the first time in years, and nearly maxed it out. My parents had to buy economy seats for their return flight. The horror. Meanwhile, I was still in the hospital, eating bland chicken soup and doing breathing exercises with Riley, but I had never felt richer. It was not about revenge, it was about liberation. They had counted on me being too kind, too quiet, too loyal. But kindness without boundaries is self-destruction. Loyalty without respect is slavery. I owed them nothing, not a reply, not an explanation, not even my anger. They had my silence now, and it was louder than any scream. When I saw my name pop up on their next voicemail transcript, "Please, Hazel, we need to talk. We are sorry. We love you," I smiled. Because I finally understood something powerful. You do not owe people access to you just because they share your last name. I was discharged a week later with a walker, a bag of pain meds, and a stack of physical therapy appointments. Riley wheeled me out, hugged me gently, and whispered, "You already did the hardest part. Do not look back." I promised her I would not. But life, as I quickly discovered, has a way of throwing your past in your face when you least expect it. My apartment was exactly as I had left it, modest, neat, but now somehow too small for all the emotional weight I carried. I spent the first few days alone, ordering groceries online, icing my legs, and sorting through documents with Camille and Armand over video calls. We were methodical, closing old accounts, opening legal proceedings for restitution, building a clean wall of distance between me and the people who used to call themselves my family. Then came the knock. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the sky a bruised gray outside my window. I opened the door slowly, gripping my walker, and there they were. My parents. And Ethan. All three of them standing on my welcome mat like nothing had happened. My mother's eyes scanned my cast and the hollow of my cheeks with mock concern. My father looked stiff, jaw-clenched, arms crossed like he was here for a board meeting. Ethan had the audacity to smile. "Hey, sis! Can we come in?" "No," I said before they could even step forward. They blinked clearly, expecting me to be softer, more compliant, maybe limping back into their arms with forgiveness and a blank check. My mother tilted her head. "Hazel, we made a mistake. But freezing our access like that, canceling our flight, that was cruel. Cruel," my voice cracked with quiet fury. "You left me in a hospital after a near-fatal accident. You vacationed with my money while I was being cut open and stitched together like a broken toy. And I am cruel." My father stepped forward. "You are overreacting." I nearly laughed. "No. I am finally reacting." I told them everything was documented, that I had lawyers, that any further contact would be considered harassment. Ethan tried to interrupt, but I raised a hand. "Save it. You are all here because you lost your meal ticket, not because you care?" My mother began crying. Real tears or not, I no longer cared. I shut the door slowly, deliberately, with their stunned faces still frozen in disbelief. It did not slam. It did not need to. The lock clicked with a finality that reverberated through my chest like thunder. Inside, I exhaled. I was not shaking. I was not scared. I was done. After I closed the door on them, something inside me went still. Not cold, just still like a pond that had finally settled after years of being trampled by storms. I sat on my couch, looked around at the simple space I used to call temporary, and realized it was the first place that truly felt mine. Not just legally, but emotionally. No voices echoing guilt, no sideways glances asking for more, no Ethan slamming doors, or my mother saying, "You know how he gets?" Just me, my thoughts, and silence, the kind that heals instead of haunts. My recovery was not quick. Physical therapy hurt. The walker made me feel older than I was. But every step I took was a quiet declaration of independence. I set routines. I planted succulents in windowsills. I made pasta from scratch just because I had the time now. I even adopted a rescue cat named Cleo, who had one eye and a habit of knocking over pens. We were a perfect match, both survivors, both unbothered by appearances. Camille and Armand checked in weekly, and with each call, another piece of my financial freedom locked into place. My accounts were clean, my credit repaired. We even began filing claims to recover stolen funds, not just to be repaid, but to leave a legal record, my final word in a courtroom, if not around a dinner table. But the biggest shift came in the form of community. Neighbors I had nodded to in passing started bringing over meals when they saw me struggle up the stairs. Samantha from the hospital visited with her service dog and sat beside me on hard days. Even Riley sent me postcards from Colorado with messages like, "Keep standing tall, screws and all." These people had no obligation to love me, and yet they did. Not for what I gave, not for what I could fund, but for who I was, when I stopped trying to prove I mattered. They taught me that family is not blood, it is behavior. It is presence. It is people who choose you without condition. One evening, I found an envelope slipped under my door. No return address. Inside was a check from Ethan. $5,000. A scribbled note said, "I owe you." I get that now. I stared at it for a long time, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Eventually, I tore it in half. Not out of spite, but because I had already been paid in full the moment I chose peace over permission. Revenge did not come with fire or fury. It came with silence, with boundaries, with rebuilding, and most of all, with never giving them the chance to burn me twice. Weeks passed. The leaves turned gold and red outside my apartment window, and for the first time in a long time I noticed them. Not from behind a computer screen, managing someone else's crisis, not from a hospital bed, wondering if anyone remembered me, but from my own front steps sipping coffee, Cleo curled around my ankles, my walker leaning unused against the railing. I was walking more now, breathing more deeply, smiling at strangers, and not once had I thought about what my family might need from me next. Because I had learned the most painful and powerful truth of all: when people show you what you mean to them, believe them. The greatest betrayal was not what they took from me, it was what they never gave in return. Compassion, presence, respect. For years I gave those things freely, hoping they would be reciprocated. But love is not love when it comes with ledgers and silence. Forgiveness, I am not sure yet. I'm still learning what that word means when the wound is not just a moment, but a pattern. What I do know is this: I have no room left for guilt disguised as duty. No room for manipulation dressed as family. My life is mine now, fully, finally. I see it most in the little things, like the laughter of my neighbors echoing through the hallway, like Samantha's voice messages that still begin with "Bionic Buddy, how are you today?" Like the binder on my desk filled with documents that no one touches but me. And Cleo, sitting in the sun, blinking that one fierce eye as if to say, "We made it." I do not look back often, but when I do, it is not to mourn. It is to remember what I will never allow again. Boundaries are not barriers. They are bridges to better, to peace, to freedom. And if that means losing people who only stayed for what I gave, then let the loss be permanent. Some nights I still dream of that hospital room, but in the dream it is quiet, warm. I am not crying. I am writing, telling a story that I now know ends not with revenge, but with release. Because sometimes the greatest act of revenge is choosing to heal, choosing to rise, and choosing never to beg for love that should have been freely given. If you felt even a sliver of my journey, if it reminded you of someone you once trusted too much or loved too long, comment below. Share your story. And subscribe to the channel so I can keep creating content that gives power back to the ones who were never supposed to have any. You are not alone. Lol.